Can't you see I'm getting old? It has to be done while I'm still alive. If you look after yourself, you will see around when my invisible sword does its work. Kojiro took the writing kit and walked to a nearby stream where he wet his finger to moisten the ink stick. Still standing, he took some paper from his kimono. He wrote quickly, but both his calligraphy and his composition were those of an expert. You can use this for paste, said Osugi, taking a few grains of cooked rice and placing them on a leaf. Kojiro mashed them between his fingers, spread the stuff along the edge of the latter, and sealed it. On the back he wrote, "From Sasaki Ganru, retainer to the house of Hosokawa. Come here, you. I'm not going to hurt you. I want you to take this letter to Musashi. Make sure he gets it, because it's important." Iori hung back a minute, but then grunted his assent and snatched the letter from Kojiro's hand. "What's written in it?" "Just what I told the old lady. May I look at it?" "You aren't to break the seal. If you wrote something insulting, I won't take it. There's nothing rude in it. I asked him to remember our promise for the future and told him I look forward to seeing him again, perhaps in Busan, if it should happen to come there." "What do you mean by seeing him again?" "I mean meeting him on the boundary between life and death." Kojiro's cheeks reddened slightly. Stuffing the letter into his kimono, Iori said, "All right, I'll deliver it," and ran off. About 30 yards away, he stopped, turned, and stuck out his tongue at Osugi. "Crazy old witch," he shouted. What? She was ready to go after him, but Kojiro took her arm and held her back. "Let it pass," he said with a rueful smile. "He's only a child." Then to Iori, he shouted, "Don't you have anything better to say?" "No." Tears of anger rose from his chest. "You will be sorry, though. There isn't any way Musashi could lose to the likes of you. Just like him, aren't you? Never say die. But I like the way you stick up for him. If he ever dies, come to me. I'll put you to work sweeping the garden or something." Not knowing Kojiro was only teasing, Iori was insulted to the marrow. He picked up a rock. When he raised his arm to throw it, Kojiro fixed his eyes on him. "Don't do that," he said in a calm but forceful voice. Iori, feeling the eyes had hit him like two bullets, dropped the stone and ran. He ran on until completely exhausted. He collapsed in the middle of Musashino Plain. He sat there for 2 hours thinking about the man he looked up to as his teacher. Though he knew Musashi had many enemies, he thought of him as a great man and wanted to become a great man like himself. Believing he had to do something to fulfill his obligations to his master and ensure his safety. He resolved to develop his own strength as quickly as possible. Then the memory of the terrifying light in Kojiro's eyes came back to haunt him. Wondering whether Musashi could defeat a man that strong, he pessimistically decided even his master would have to study and practice harder. He got to his feet. The white mist rolling down from the mountains spread over the plain. Deciding he should go on to Chichibu and deliver Kojiro's letter, he suddenly remembered the horse. Fearing bandits might have got hold of it, he searched frantically, calling and whistling at every other step. He seemed to hear the sound of hoofs coming from the direction of what he took to be a pond. He ran toward it, but there was no horse, no pond. The shimmering mist receded into a distance. Seeing a moving black object, he approached it. A wild boa stopped rooting for food and charged dangerously close to him. The boa was swallowed up in the reeds, and in its wake the mist formed a white line, looking as if it had been spread by a magician's wand. As he gazed at it, he became conscious of gargling water. Going closer, he saw the reflection of the moon in a rocky brook. He had always been sensitive to the mysteries of the open plain. He firmly believed that the tiniest ladybird possessed the spiritual power of the gods. In his eyes, nothing was without a soul, neither flattering leaves, nor beckoning water, nor driving wind. Surrounded now by nature, he experienced the tremulous loneliness of autumn, autumn nearly gone, the sad wistfulness that must be felt by grasses and insects and water. He sobbed so hard his shoulders shook. Sweet tears, not bitter ones. If some being other than a human, a star perhaps, or the spirit of the plain, had asked him why he was weeping, he wouldn't have been able to say. If the inquiring spirit had persisted, soothing and coaxing him, he might finally have said, I often cry when I'm out in the open. I always have the feeling the house in Hotengahara is somewhere near. Crying was refreshment for his soul. After he had cried to his heart's content, heaven and earth would comfort him. When the tears were dry, his spirit would come forth from the clouds clean and fresh. That's Iori, isn't it? I believe it is. Iori turned toward the voices and the two human figures standing out blackly against the evening sky. Sensei, cried Iori, stumbling as he ran toward the man on horseback. It's you! Beside himself with joy, he clung to the stair up and looked up to make sure he wasn't dreaming. What happened? Asked Musashi. What are you doing out here alone? Musashi's face seemed to be very thin. Was it the moonlight? But the warmth of the voice was what Iori had hungered for weeks to hear. I thought I would go to Chichibu. The saddle caught Iori's eye. Why, this is the horse I was riding. Konosuke, laughing, said, Is it yours? Yes. We didn't know who it belonged to. It was wandering around near the Iruma River, so I regarded it as a gift from heaven to Musashi. The god of the plain must have sent the horse to meet you, said Iori with perfect sincerity. Your horse, you say? That saddle couldn't belong to a samurai getting less than 5,000 bushels. Well, it's really Shinzo's. This mountain, Musashi asked. You have been staying at his house then? Yes, Takuan took me there. What about our new house? It's finished. Good, we can go back. Sensei, yes? You are so thin. Why is that? I have spent quite a bit of time meditating. How did you get out of prison? You can hear about it from Konosuke later. For now, let's say the gods were on my side. You don't have to worry anymore, Iori, said Konosuke. No one has any doubts about his innocence. Relieved, Iori became quite talkative, telling them about his meeting with Jotaro and Jotaro's going to Edo. When he came to the repulsive old woman who had shown up at the Hojo mansion, he remembered Kojiro's letter. Oh, I forgot something important, he exclaimed, and handed the letter to Musashi. A letter from Kojiro? Surprised, he held it in his hand for a moment as though it were a missive from a long-lost friend. Where did you see him? He asked. At the village of Nobidome. That mean old woman was with him. He said he was going to Busan. Oh, He was with a lot of Hosokawa samurai. Sensei, you better be on your toes and not take any chances. Musashi stuffed the unopened letter into his kimono and nodded. Not certain his meaning had got through, Iori said. That Kojiro's very strong, isn't he? Has he got something against you? He related to Musashi every detail of his encounter with the enemy. When they reached the cabin, Iori went down to the bottom of the hill to get food, and Konosuke gathered wood and fetched water. They sat down around the fire burning brightly in the hearth and savored the pleasure of seeing each other safe and sound again. It was then that Iori noticed the fresh scars and bruises on Musashi's arms and neck. How did you get all those marks? He asked. You are covered with them. It's nothing important. Did you feed the horse? Yes, sir. Tomorrow you must return it. Early the next morning, Iori mounted the horse and galloped off for a short ride before breakfast. When the sun was above the horizon, he brought the horse to a halt and gaped in awe. Riding back to the cabin, he yelled, Sensei, get up, quick! It's like when we saw it from the mountain in Chichibu. The sun, it's huge, and it looks like it's going to roll over the plain. Get up, Konosuke. Good morning, said Musashi from the grove where he was taking a stroll. Too excited to think about breakfast, Iori said, I'm going now, and rode off. Musashi watched as boy and horse took on the semblance of a crow at the very center of the sun. The black spot grew smaller and smaller until at last it was absorbed by the great flaming orb. The gateway to glory. Go to glory. Before sitting down to breakfast, the gateman raked the garden, set fire to the leaves, and opened the gate. Shinzo had been up for some time too. He started his day as he always did, by reading a selection from the Chinese classics. This was followed by sword practice. From the well where he had gone to wash, he walked to the stable to have a look at the horses. Groom, he called. Yes, sir. Isn't the chestnut roan back yet? No, but it isn't the horse I'm worried about so much as the boy. Don't worry about Iori. He grew up in the country. He can take care of himself. The elderly gateman came up to Shinzo and informed him that some men had come to see him and were waiting in the garden. Walking toward the house, Shinzo waved, and as he came up to them, one man said, It has been a long time. It's good to see you all together again, said Shinzo. How's your health? Splendid, as you can see. We heard you had been wounded. It didn't amount to much. What brings you here at this early hour? There's a little matter we would like to talk over with you. The 5 former students of Obata Kagenori, all handsome sons of banner gods or Confucian scholars, exchanged significant glances. Let's go over there, said Shinzo, indicating a maple-covered hayloft in one corner of the garden. Coming to the gateman's fire, they stopped and stood around it. Shinzo put his hand to his neck, then noticing the others were looking at him, said, When it's cold, it does ache a little. They took turns examining the scar. I heard that was the walk of Sasaki Kojiro. There was a short, tense silence. As it happens, our purpose in coming today was to talk about Kojiro. Yesterday, we learned he was the man who killed Yogoro. I suspected that. Do you have any proof? Circumstantial, but convincing. Yogoro's body was found at the bottom of Isarago Hill behind the temple. Kakube's house is halfway up the hill. Kojiro was living there. I wouldn't be surprised if Yogoro went alone to see Kojiro. We are pretty sure that's what happened. 3 or 4 nights before the body was found, a florist saw a man answering to Yogoro's description climbing the hill. Kojiro must have killed him and carried the body down the hill. The 6 men stared solemnly at each other, their eyes reflecting their silent anger. Shinzo, his face reddened by the fire, asked, "Is that all?" "No, we wanted to talk about the future of the House of Obata and how we are going to take care of Kojiro." Shinzo stood lost in thought. The man who had spoken first said, "You may have heard this already. Kojiro has become a vassal of Lord Hosokawa Tadatoshi. He's on his way to Busan now, and he hasn't paid for what he did. Ruin our master's reputation, kill his only son and heir, and slaughter our comrades." Shinzo urged a third man, "As disciples of Obata Kagenori, we have to do something." Bits of white ash drifted up from the fire. One man caught a whiff of smoke and coughed. After listening to them for a few minutes as they expressed their bitter indignation, Shinzo said, "I'm one of the victims, of course, and I have a plan of my own. But tell me just what you have in mind." "We are thinking of lodging a protest with Lord Hosokawa. We will tell him the whole story and ask that Kojiro be turned over to us. Then what? We will see his head up on a pike in front of the graves of our teacher and his son. You might be able to do that if he were turned over to you tied up. But the Hosokawas aren't likely to do that. Even though he's only recently been engaged, he is their vassal, and it is his skill they are interested in. Your complaint would only be taken as further proof of his ability. What daimyo is going to turn over one of his vassals to anyone without compelling reasons? Then we will have to take extreme measures, such as the group he is traveling with is fairly large. We could easily catch up with them, with you as our leader, the 6 of us, and other loyal disciples. Are you suggesting attacking him? Yes, go with us, Shinzo. I don't like it. Aren't you the one who has been chosen to carry on the Obata name? Admitting an enemy is better than we are. Admitting an enemy is better than we are is difficult, Shinzo said thoughtfully. Still, objectively, Kojiro's the better swordsman. Even with dozens of men, I'm afraid we would only end up adding to our shame. You are going to stand by and do nothing? Asked one man indignantly. No, I resent Kojiro's getting away with what he has done as much as any of you. But I'm willing to wait until the time is right. You are awfully patient, one man said sarcastically. Aren't you evading your responsibility? Asked another. When Shinzo made no reply, the 5 men decided further talk was useless and departed in haste. On the way, they passed Iori, who had dismounted at the gate and was leading the horse to the stable. After tying the animal up, he saw Shinzo by the fire and went to join him. "Oh, so you are back," said Shinzo. "Yes," said Iori. "Say, did you have a quarrel?" "Why do you ask? When I came in just now, I passed some samurai. They seemed angry. They were saying strange things like, 'I overestimated him, and he's a weakling.'" "That doesn't mean anything," said Shinzo with a little laugh. "Come closer and warm yourself. Who needs a fire? I rode all the way from Musashino without stopping." "You seem in good spirits. Where did you stay last night?" "At the house. Sensei is back. I heard he was or soon would be." "Soon would be. You already knew? Takuan told me." "Iori, have you heard the news?" "What news?" "Your teacher is going to be a great man." "It's a wonderful stroke of luck for him. He's going to be one of the shogun's teachers. He will be the founder of his own school of swordsmanship. Do you mean that? Does it make you happy? Of course, happier than anything. Can I borrow the horse? Now you just came back. I will go and tell him. You don't have to do that. Before the day's out, the Council of Elders will issue a formal summons. As soon as we receive word, I'll go myself and tell Musashi. Will he come here? Yes, Shinzo assured him. With a last look at the dying fire, he started toward the house, cheered a bit by Iori but worried about the fate of his angry friends. The summons was not long in coming. A messenger arrived about 2 hours later with a letter for Takuan and an order for Musashi to appear the following day at the reception pavilion just outside Wadakura Gate. After his appointment was confirmed, he would be received in audience by the shogun. When Shinzo, with an attendant, reached the house on Musashino Plain, he found Musashi sitting in the sand with a kitten on his lap talking with Konosuke. Words were few. Shinzo said only, "I have come for you." "Thanks," said Musashi. "I was about to call you to thank you for looking after Musashi." Without further ado, he mounted the horse Shinzo had brought along for him and they returned to Ushigome. That evening, as he sat with Takuan and Lord Ujikatsu, he felt immensely fortunate to be able to regard these men as well as Shinzo true friends. In the morning, Musashi awoke to find clothes suitable to the occasion already laid out for him, together with such things as a fan and tissue paper. And at breakfast, Lord Ujikatsu said to him, "It's a great day, you should rejoice." The meal included rice with red beans, a whole sea bream for each person, and other dishes served only on festive occasions. The menu was very much as it would have been for a coming of age ceremony in the Hojo family. Musashi wanted to refuse the appointment. In Chichibu, he had reconsidered his 2 years in Hotengahara and his ambition to put his swordsmanship to work in the interest of good government. Now the belief that Edo, not to speak of the rest of the country, was ready for the type of ideal government he envisioned seemed less tenable. The sanctity of the way and the application of the principles of swordsmanship for the sake of peace seemed no more than lofty ideals, at least until either Edo or Osaka succeeded in consolidating its rule over the whole country. And he hadn't made up his mind on another point. If the final battle were to come tomorrow, should he support the Eastern Army or the Western Army? Or should he leave the war behind and survive on mountain grasses until peace was restored? Even on this morning, he could not escape the feeling that if he contented himself with a high position, his pursuit of the way would be aborted. But he couldn't refuse. What finally swayed him was the trust in him shown by his supporters. There was no way to say no. He could not break faith with Takuan, his old friend and stern mentor, and Lord Ujikatsu, now a valued acquaintance. Dressed in formal attire and riding a splendid horse with a beautiful saddle, he set forth on a brilliantly sunlit road for the castle, each step supposedly carrying him closer to the gateway to glory. In front of the reception pavilion was a gravel courtyard and on a high post a sign saying "Dismount." As Musashi got off the horse, an official and one of the stablemen came forward. "My name is Miyamoto Musashi," he announced in a formal tone of voice. "I have come in response to a summons issued yesterday by the Council of Elders." May I request that you show me to the official in charge of the waiting room? He had come alone, as was expected of him. Another official came and escorted him to the waiting room, where he was advised to stay until there is word from within. It was a large room, more than 20 meters in size, known as the Orchid Room, after the paintings of birds and spring orchids on the walls and door panels. Before long, a servant came with tea cakes, but that was Musashi's only contact with human beings for nearly half a day. The little birds in the pictures did not sing, the orchids gave off no fragrance. Musashi began to yawn. He assumed that the ruddy-faced, white-haired man who eventually appeared was one of the ministers. Perhaps in his prime he had been a distinguished warrior. "You are Musashi, aren't you?" Lord Sakai Tatakatsu said lightly as he sat down. "Forgive us for making you wait so long." Though Lord of Kawakoe and a well-known daimyo, in the shogun's castle he was merely another official, attended by only one samurai. His manner suggested he cared little about pomp or protocol. Musashi bowed to the floor and remained in this position as he announced in stiffly formal language, "My name is Miyamoto Musashi. I am a ronin from Mimasaka, the son of Munisai, who was descended from the Shimen family. I have come to the castle gate in compliance with the shogun's will, as stated in the summons sent to me." Tadakatsu nodded several times, causing his double chin to shake. "Many thanks for your trouble," he said, but then went on in an apologetic vein. "With regard to your appointment to official position, for which you were recommended by the priest Takuan and Lord Hojo of Awa, there was, last evening, a sudden change in the shogun's plans. As a result, you will not be engaged. Since several of us were not satisfied with this decision, the Council of Elders reviewed this matter today. In fact, we have been discussing it until just now. We took the question to the shogun again. I am sorry to say that we were unable to order this latest decision." There was sympathy in his eyes, and he seemed for a moment to be searching for words of consolation. "In our fleeting world," he went on, "this sort of thing happens all the time. You mustn't let yourself be annoyed by what people say about you. In matters having to do with official appointments, it is often difficult to tell whether one has been fortunate or unfortunate." Musashi, still bowing, said, "Yes, sir." Taku and Tadakatsu's words were music to his ears. Gratitude swelled from the bottom of his heart, filling his whole body. "I understand the decision, sir. I am grateful to you." The words came out naturally. Musashi was not concerned with face, nor was he being ironic. He felt that a being greater than the shogun had just bestowed on him an appointment much higher than that of official tutor. The word of the gods had been vouchsafed to him. He took it well, thought Tadakatsu, gazing rather pointedly at Musashi. Aloud he said, "Perhaps it is presumptuous of me, but I have been told you have artistic interests unusual in a samurai. I would like to show an example of your work to the shogun. Replying to the malicious gossip of ordinary people is unimportant. I think it would be more befitting a noble samurai to rise above the babble of the crowd and leave behind a wordless testimony to the purity of his heart. A work of art would be appropriate, don't you think? While Musashi was still pondering the meaning of this, Tadakatsu said, "I hope I will see you again," and left the room. Musashi raised his head and sat up straight. It was a couple of minutes before he grasped the meaning of Tadakatsu's words. That is, there was no need to answer malicious gossip, but he had to give evidence of his character. If he could do this, his honor would be unsullied, and the man who had recommended him would suffer no loss of face. Musashi's eye fell on a six-panel screen in one corner of the room. It was invitingly blank. Summoning a young samurai from the guard room, he explained that Lord Sakai had asked him to draw a picture and requested materials with which to comply: brushes, ink of good quality, some aged cinnabar, and a bit of blue pigment. It occurred to Musashi what an odd fact it was that most children could draw and sing for that matter, but that they forgot how to as they grew older. Perhaps the little bit of wisdom they acquired inhibited them. He himself was no exception. As a child, he had often drawn pictures, this having been one of his favorite ways of overcoming loneliness. But from the age of 13 or 14 until he was past 20, he gave up drawing almost entirely. In the course of his travels, he had often stopped over at temples or the houses of the wealthy, where he had the opportunity to see good paintings, murals, or scrolls hanging in alcoves, and this had given him a lively interest in art. The aristocratic simplicity and subtle profundity of Liang Kai's painting of chestnuts had made an especially deep impression. After seeing that work at Koatsu House, he had availed himself of every opportunity to view rare Chinese paintings of the Song dynasty, the works of the 15th century Japanese Zen masters, and the paintings of contemporary masters of the Kano school, particularly Kano Sanraku and Kaiho Yusho. Naturally, he had his likes and dislikes. Liang Kai's bold, virile brush, as seen by a swordsman's eye, struck him as revealing the prodigious strength of a giant. Kaiho Yusho, possibly because he was of samurai origin, had in his old age achieved such a high degree of purity that Musashi considered him a worthy man to take as a model. He was also attracted by the light impromptu effects in the works of the hermit priest and the aesthetic Shokado Shoujo, whom he liked all the more because he was reputed to be a close friend of Takuan. Painting, which seemed far removed from the path he had chosen, was hardly an art for a person who rarely spent a full month in any one place. Yet he did paint from time to time. As in the case of other adults who had forgotten how to draw, his mind would walk but not his spirit. Intent upon drawing skillfully, he was unable to express himself naturally. Many had been the times he had become discouraged and quit. Then, sooner or later, some impulse invariably moved him to pick up the brush again. In secret, being ashamed of his paintings, he never showed them to others, though he allowed people to inspect his sculpture. Until now, that is. To commemorate this fateful day, he resolved to paint a picture fit for the shogun or anyone else to see. He walked rapidly and without interruption until it was finished. Then he quietly put the brush in a jar of water and left, without a single backward glance at his walk. In the courtyard, he did turn around for one last look at the imposing gate. One question filling his mind: did glory lie inside or outside the gate? Sakai Tadakatsu returned to the waiting room and sat for some time gazing at the still, damp painting. The picture was of Musashi no Plain. In the middle, appearing very large, was the rising sun. This, symbolizing Musashi's confidence in his own integrity, was vermilion. The rest of the work was executed in ink to capture the feeling of autumn on the plain. Tadakatsu said Tadakatsu said to himself, "We have lost a tiger to the wilds." The sound of heaven. "Back already?" asked Konosuke, blinking his eyes at the sight of Musashi in stiffly starched formal dress. Musashi went inside the house and sat down. Konosuke knelt at the edge of the reed matting and bowed. "Congratulations," he said warmly. "Will you have to go to work right away?" "The appointment was cancelled," Musashi said with a laugh. "Cancelled? Are you joking?" "No, and I consider it a good thing. A good thing too." "I don't understand. Do you know what went wrong?" I saw no reason to ask. I am grateful to heaven for the way it turned out. But it seems a pity. Are you even of the opinion? Are even you of the opinion I can find glory only within the walls of Edo Castle? Konosuke did not answer. For a time I had such an ambition. I dreamed of applying my understanding of the sword to the problem of providing peace and happiness for the people, making the way of the sword the way of government. I thought being an official would give me a chance to test my idea. Somebody slandered you, is that it? Perhaps, but don't give it another thought and don't misunderstand me. My ideas, I have learned, particularly today, are little more than dreams. That's not true. I have had the same idea. The way of the sword and the spirit of good government ought to be one and the same. I'm glad we agree. But in fact, the truth of the scholar, alone in his study, does not always accord with what the world at large considers to be true. Then you think the truth you and I are searching for is of no use in the real world. "No, it's not that," said Musashi impatiently. "As long as this country exists, no matter how things change, the brave man's way of the spirit will never cease to be useful. If you give the matter some thought, you will see that the way of government is not concerned with the art of war alone. A flawless political system must be based on a perfect blending of military and literary arts. To cause the world to live in peace is the ultimate way of the sword. That's why I have come to the conclusion that my thoughts are only dreams, childish dreams at that. I must learn to be a humble servant of two gods, one of the sword, one of the pen. Before I attempt to govern the nation, I must learn what the nation has to teach." He concluded with a laugh, but abruptly stopped and asked Konosuke if he had an ink box or a writing kit. When he finished writing, he folded up his letter and said to Konosuke, "I'm sorry to trouble you, but I would like to ask you to deliver this for me." "Yes, To the Hojo residents, yes, I have written fully about my feelings. Give Takuan and Lord Ujikatsu my warmest greetings. Oh, there's one more thing. I have been keeping some of Iori's. Please give it to him. He pulled out the pouch Iori's father. I have been keeping something of Iori's. Please give it to him. He pulled out the pouch Iori's father had left him and placed it beside the letter. With an anxious look on his face, Konosuke moved forward on his knees and said, "Why are you returning this to Iori now?" "I'm going to the mountains. Mountains or city, wherever you go, Iori and I want to be with you as your disciples. I won't be away forever. While I am, I would like you to take care of Iori. Say for the next 2 or 3 years. What, are you going into retirement?" Musashi laughed and crossed his legs and leaned back on his arms. "I'm much too young for that. I'm not giving up my great hope. Everything's still ahead of me. Desire, illusion, everything. There's a song. I don't know who wrote it, but it goes like this. While yearning to gain the depths of the mountains, I'm drawn against my will to the places where people reside." Konosuke lowered his head as he listened. Then he stood up and put the letter and pouch in his kimono. "I better go now," he said quietly. "It's getting dark." "All right, please return the horse and tell Lord Ujikatsu that since the clothes are soiled from travel, I will keep them." "Yes, of course." "I don't think it would be discreet for me to go back to Lord Ujikatsu's house. The cancellation of the appointment must mean that the shogunate regards me as unreliable or suspicious. It might cause Lord Ujikatsu trouble to be associated any more closely with me. I didn't write that in the letter, so I want you to explain it to him. Tell him I hope he is not offended. I understand. I will be back before morning." The sun was rapidly setting. Konosuke took the horse bit and led the animal down the path. Since it had been lent to Musashi, the idea of riding it never crossed his mind. It was about 2 hours later when he reached Ushigome. The men were sitting around, wondering what had become of Musashi. Konosuke joined them and gave the letter to Takuan. An official had already been there to inform them of unfavorable reports on Musashi's character and past activities. Of all the points against him, the most damaging was that he had an enemy who had sworn vengeance. According to the rumors, Musashi was in the wrong. After the official left, Shinzo had told his father and Takuan about Osugi's visit. She even tried to say how "where's there" was the way he put it. What was left unexplained was why people accepted so unquestioningly what they were told. Not just ordinary people, women gossiping around the well or laborers drinking in cheap sake shops, but men who had the intelligence to sift fat from fabrication. The shogun's ministers had discussed the matter for many long hours, but even they had ended up giving credence to Osugi calumnies. Takuan and the others half expected Musashi's letter to express his discontent, but in fact it said little beyond giving his reason for going away. He began by saying that he had asked Konosuke to tell them how he felt. Then came the song he had sung for Konosuke. The short letter ended, "Indulging my chronic wanderlust, I am setting out on another aimless journey. On this occasion, I offer the following poem, which may amuse you. If the universe is indeed my garden, when I look at it, I stand at the exit of the house called the Floating World. Though Ujikatsu and Shinzo were deeply touched by Musashi's consideration, Ujikatsu said he is too self-effacing. I would like to see him once more before he goes away. Takuan, I doubt that he will come if we send for him, so let's go to him. He got to his feet, ready to leave immediately. Could you wait a moment, sir? Asked Konosuke. I would like to go with you, but Musashi asked me to give something to Iori. Could you have him brought here? When Iori came in, he asked, Did you want me? His eyes went immediately to the pouch in Konosuke's hand. Musashi said you were to take good care of this, said Konosuke, since it is the only keepsake you have from your father. He then explained that the two of them would be together until Musashi's return. Iori couldn't hide his disappointment, but not wanting to appear weak, he nodded half-heartedly. In answer to Takuan's inquiries, Iori told all he knew about his parents. When there were no more questions, he said, One thing I have never known is what became of my sister. My father didn't say much about her, and my mother died without telling me anything I can remember. I don't know where she lives or whether she's alive or dead. Takuan placed the pouch on his knee and took out a crumpled piece of paper. As he read the cryptic message Iori's father had written, his eyebrows shot up in surprise. Staring hard at Iori, he said, This tells us something about your sister. I thought maybe it did, but I didn't understand it, and neither did the priest at the Tokuganji. Skipping over the first part, Takuan read aloud, Since I had resolved to die of starvation before serving a second lord, my wife and I wandered around for many years, living in the humblest circumstances. One year, we had to abandon our daughter at a temple in the central provinces. We put one sound of heaven in her baby clothes and entrusted her future to the threshold of compassion. Then we went on to another province. Later, I acquired my thatched house in the fields of Shimosa. I thought back to that earlier time, but the place was far away and we had no word. So I feared it might not be in the girl's interest to try to find her. I consequently left matters as they were. How cruel parents can be, I am reproved by the words of Minamoto no Sanetomo. Even the animals, which cannot speak their feelings, are not bereft of the tender, generous love of parents of their offspring. May my ancestor take pity on me for refusing to sully my honor as a samurai by taking a second lord. You are my son. No matter how much you crave success, do not eat dishonorable millet. As he placed the paper back in the pouch, Takuan said, You will be able to see your sister. I have known her since I was a young man. Musashi knows her too. Come with us, Iori. He gave no hint as to why he said this, nor did he mention Otsu or the sound of heaven, which he recognized to be her flute. They all left together and hurried to the cabin, arriving shortly after the first rays of the rising sun touched it. It stood empty. On the edge of the plain was one white cloud. The perfect light. The runaway ox, the shadow of the plum branch cast on the white plaster wall by the pallid sun, was beautiful in a restrained way, evocative of monochrome ink painting. It was early spring in Koyaku and quiet. the branches of the plum trees seemingly beckoning southward to the nightingales that would soon flock to the valley. And like the birds, the Shugyoshi who presented themselves at the castle gate knew no season. They came in a constant stream, seeking either to receive instruction from Seiki Shusai or to try their hand against him. The litany varied little. Please, just one bout. I beg you, let me see him. I'm the only true disciple of so and so who teaches at such and such a place. For the past 10 years, the gods have been giving the same reply. Because of their master's advanced age, he was unable to receive anyone. Few swordsmen or would-be swordsmen would let it go at that. Some launched diatribes on the meaning of the true way and how there should be no discrimination between young and old, rich and poor, beginner and expert. Others simply pleaded, while still others rashly tried to offer bribes. Many went away muttering angry imprecations. Had the truth been generally known, namely that Seiki Shusai had passed away late the previous year, matters might have been greatly simplified. But it had been decided that since Munenori couldn't get away from Edo until the 4th month, the death should be kept secret until the funereal service had been held. One of the handful of people outside the castle who knew the circumstances now sat in a guest room asking rather insistently to see Hyogo. It was Inshun, the elderly abbot of the Hozoin, who throughout Ai's dotage and after his death had upheld the temple's reputation as a martial arts center. Many even believed he had improved it. He had done everything possible to maintain the close ties between the temple and the Koyagyu that had existed since the days of In-A and Seiki Shusai. He wanted to see Hyogo, he said, because he wanted to have a talk about the martial arts. Sugekuro knew what he really wanted, to have a bout with the man whom his grandfather had privately regarded as a better swordsman than either himself or Munenori. Hyogo, of course, would have no part in such a match, since he thought it would benefit neither side and was therefore senseless. Sugekuro assured Inshun that word had been sent. I'm sure Hyogo would come to greet you if he were feeling better. So you mean to say he still has a cold? Yes, he can't seem to get rid of it. I didn't know his health was so frail. Oh, it isn't really, but he has been in Edo for some time, and he can't quite get used to these cold mountain winters. While the two men chatted, a servant boy was calling Osu's name in the garden of the innermost encirclement. A shoji opened and she emerged from one of the houses, trailing a whiff of incense smoke. She was still in mourning, more than 100 days since Seiki Shusai's passing, and her face looked as white as a pear blossom. Where have you been? I've been looking everywhere, asked the boy. I have been in the Buddhist chapel. Hyogo's asking for you. When she enters Hyogo's room, he said, Ah, Otsu, thank you for coming. I would like you to greet a visitor for me. Yes, of course. He has been here quite a while. Sugekuro wanted to keep him company, but listening to him go on and on about the art of war must have Sugekuro pretty exhausted by now. The abbot of the Hozoin? Otsu smiled faintly, bowed and left the room. Meanwhile, Inshun was not too sadly feeling Sugekuro out regarding Hyogo's past and character. I am told that when Kato Kiyomasa offered him a position, Seiki Shusai refused to consent unless Kiyomasa agreed to an unusual condition. Really? I don't recall ever hearing of any such thing. According to NA, Seiki Shusai told Kiyomasa that since Hyogo was extremely quick-tempered, his lordship would have to promise in advance that if Hyogo committed any capital offenses, he would pardon the first three. Seiki Shusai was never known to condone impetuosity. He must have had rather a special feeling about Hyogo. This came as such a surprise that Sugekuro was still at a loss for words when Otsu entered. She smiled at the abbot and said, "How good to see you again. Unfortunately, Hyogo is tied up preparing a report, which must be sent to Edo immediately, but he asked me to convey his apologies at not being able to see you this time. She busied herself serving tea and cakes to Inshun and the two young priests attending him. The abbot looked disappointed, though he politely ignored the discrepancy between Sugekuro's excuse and Otsu. "I'm sorry to hear that. I had some important information for him. I will be happy to pass it on," said Sugekuro, "and you can rest assured Hyogo's ears alone will hear it." "Oh, I'm sure of that," said the old priest. "I just want to warn Hyogo in person." Inshun then repeated a rumor he had heard about some samurai from Ueno Castle in Iga province. The dividing line between Koyagyu and the castle lay in a sparsely inhabited area about 2 miles to the east, and ever since Ieyasu had confiscated it from the Christian daimyo Susui Sadasugu and reassigned it to Todo Takatora, many changes have been taking place. Takatora had, since taking up residence the previous year, repaired the castle, revised the tax system, improved the irrigation facilities, and carried out other measures to consolidate his holdings. All this was common knowledge. What Inshun had got wind of was that Takatora was in the process of trying to expand his lands by pushing back the boundary line. According to the reports, Takatora had dispatched a number of samurai to Tsukigase, where they were building houses, cutting down plum trees, waylaying travelers, and openly trespassing on Lord Yagyu's property. "It could be," observed Inshun, "Lord Takatora is taking advantage of your being in mourning. You may think I'm an alarmist, but it looks as though he is planning to push the boundary back in this direction and put up a new fence. If he is, it will be a lot easier to attend to things now than after he has finished. After he's finished, if you sit back and do nothing, you will regret it later, I'm afraid." Speaking as one of the senior retainers, Sugekuro thanked Inshun for the information. "I will have the situation investigated and lodge a complaint if one is warranted." Expressing thanks on behalf of Hyogo, Sugekuro bowed as the abbot took his leave. When Sugekuro went to inform Hyogo of the rumors, Hyogo just laughed. "Let it be," he said. "When my uncle gets back, he can look into it." Sugekuro, who knew the importance of guarding every foot of land, wasn't quite satisfied with Hyogo's attitude. He conferred with the other ranking samurai, and together they agreed that, though discretion was called for, something could be done. Todo Takatora was one of the most powerful daimyo in the country. The following morning, as Sugekuro was leaving the dojo above the Shinkagedo after sword practice, he ran into a boy of 13 or 14. The lad bowed to Sugekuro, who said jovially, "Hello there, Ushinosuke, peeking into the dojo again. Did you bring me a present? Let's see. Wild potatoes?" He was only half teasing, since Ushinosuke's potatoes were always better than anyone else. The boy